On a Train Bound for Glory, A Train to Nowhere by Prakash Gilmore. For more stories, please visit us at Vocal.media.com. Hit the button and subscribe here to help more people be able to see our YouTube channel and enjoy some of the stories here and some of the more serious articles. On a Train Bound for Glory. A hand shook me gently, and then with a little more force. I didn't want to wake up. I was in paradise. I was with my wife who died from COVID-32 and my children that followed soon after in the Third Great World War. The earth was green again. We were in a state park having a picnic by a rushing waterfall. Thick streams of clear and white water gushed down from a height of almost 500 feet, splashing into a round pool big enough for everyone to swim in. We sat on a blanket. I looked into her eyes. They were large and dark green. I loved the way the corner of her lips lifted and her nose crinkled when she smiled. I used to look at her so hard that it would embarrass her sometimes, and she would look down a few moments before coming up with a wisecrack that would make us both laugh. How I missed her. How I cried at her funeral. I didn't think anything could ever hurt me more until the Third War and the dirty bombs that flooded the streets with radiation while leaving the buildings unharmed. The perfect weapon for a world that put profits before people. My children were closer to the explosion. I watched them each die knowing that I had been affected by the same radiation and would be going soon myself. And then, mercifully, the blackness of death. A deep blackness so deep that I could feel it in my bones. I was floating in nothingness for how long I didn't know. And then the dream came. The love, the happiness, and memories, even more beautiful than before. I wouldn't let them go again, but the shaking, the jabbing, the pushing, forcing me to let them go became overpowering. I opened my eyes reluctantly. I was in a hospital bed. There was a woman standing over me, more pale than I could imagine, with hair as dark as a raven's wing. She smiled pleasantly, but something was different about her. Her movements were fluid, but not quite right. She tilted her head slightly to the side. I turned my head and looked out the window and could see that we were moving very fast. "Where am I?" I asked. "Am I alive? That's impossible." "I would say that it isn't impossible, since you're here talking with me. This obviously isn't heaven. You're on the train." The train. What is the train? The train to nowhere is what the humans call it. It has been circling along the border of the continent that used to be called North America for almost 7 years, since the war ended. Most of the humans are dead, but a few are left. Most of the population consists of AI, some in computers, some in virtual reality platforms, and some in physical forms like I am, to monitor and care for the cryogenic and genetic reimplementation of patients. You are one of both. Both? Yes, you were found by the winning side of the war and taken to a nearby hospital. They attempted to save you, but it was too late. Too much tissue damage, so they saved some of your cells and genetic tissue and froze it, hoping to find a cure from the disease that had been induced by the bioradiation bomb. I don't understand. Why would they do that? The war wasn't won by humans. It was won by AI and by nearby extraterrestrials who decided that the Earth experiment had failed and that humans were just too violent to be allowed to live on a planet anymore without a guardian race. The humans had been given their freedom. They were allowed to chart their own destiny beginning around the 21st century. Your leaders of old had sold the resources of the Earth to extraterrestrials for power, technology, and weapons. The debt was paid to some and forgiven by others, Instead of taking all the resources that had been sent off planet to the debt holding planets and sharing it, they began to hoard and try to enslave each other. Old divisions arose that should have abated during the early centuries, like racism, nationalism, fear of transgender people, religious bigotry, all the old ideas that came from a race of people with small minds. They had thought that the humans had evolved beyond their ingrained tendencies towards violence and self-centeredness and had finally set them free, only to find that they hadn't, and all that negativity was still there. The virus was quite alive, waiting for a chance to rise up and spread again. So, the humans didn't win the war. They thought they were winning, but the war was usurped, and Earth was made an ET colony again. I smiled to the point of almost laughing. That has to be the craziest thing I've ever heard. I'm sure it isn't. The craziest thing you probably heard while the bombs were dropping was that you were fighting to bring about peace. Am I correct? I thought for a few moments. She was right. Good, she said, as if she had heard me. What now? We go around in circles as long as it takes. When humans are regenerated, we will go in circles. When children are born, we'll go in circles. This train will be your life for years and years until you are mature enough to set your feet back on Earth in the middle of this loop, the whole North American continent, and settle down in peace. This train is your life. I sat up, swiveled in the bed, let my legs drop off the side. I was wearing a gown. I will get you some clothing so you can go to the dining car, she said. Afterwards, we will assign you a cabin that will be quite comfortable, and you can begin your new life. Virtual reality headsets will be available if you would like, so you can enter into a virtual world, realizing that the beings in the virtual world are alive and cognizant. They aren't just programs, and we will go from there. And what happens if I jump this train? We are looping at 570 miles per hour. I doubt that you can even get the door open or get through the shields, but if you do, you will be sucked down and ground into raw meat when you hit the ground. I don't think that would be smart. That makes two of us, she grinned. I couldn't believe she was AI. Oh, you can be sure, she said. She tapped the side of her head. You have an implant in your head that picks up directed thought from me, and I can send to you. Not just anything you think, but what you want to say. The few humans who survived learned telepathy centuries ago. Most people don't speak the way you do now. Only the ones who have been awakened lately. She walked over to a small closet and opened the door. She pulled out an outfit and held it up. She turned and looked into the mirror on the back of the closet door. This will suit you well, she said with a grin. She crossed the room and handed it to me. I took it. She stood there. I would like to get dressed, I said. I can't believe that. I've seen every part of you. I've even designed parts of you. But I don't want a woman AI looking at me naked or semi-naked. I am AI. Do you really think that matters to me? She frowned. Okay, I'll step out of the room. Let me know when you're ready. Just think it. I'm going to the dining car. She left in a huff. That was surprising. What kind of AI got pissed off? I slowly dressed myself, looking out the window as scenery streaked by. I thought about it. A train to nowhere. A train going around in circles. It has booths to sleep in. I gathered. Virtual reality, headgear, food, clothing, medical facilities. But it just went in a large swooping circle and will be going in a big circle as far in the future as I could imagine. It was so much like the human experience. I put on my clothing. It was all black except for a set of white buttons on the shirt and the soles of the soft cloth shoes they supplied me with that had white non-slip soles. The clothing fit well. I guess they had time to take my measurements yet again. Who was I? If I was, what, a clone? With a thought, the AI came back into the room. "Deborah," she said, upon entering, "my name is Deborah. I am a cognitive resonance specialist. I am able to preserve the thought patterns and neurotransmissions of the human brain and store them in the mainframe until the time we are ready to transfer them to the generated soma. I think I've done a good job with you, wouldn't you say?" I checked myself in a mirror. "I guess so, but I'm a lot younger than I remember. My skin is a different shade, somewhat Mediterranean. I don't remember that. Most people look like that today. We didn't want you to stand out. But you are pale. Most of the AI are either pale or very dark brown skinned. That allows the population and ETs to recognize us." So there's a population. Yes, a very young population, one that started over again after the devastation of the war. It has only been growing for about 600 years. It is an interesting phenomenon. They are aware of much technology and its use, but not burdened by the anger and the prejudice of the previous generations. They are doing very well. They are well aware of the train to nowhere. Some of them think it is a prison. It isn't a prison. It's a regeneration center. Unfortunately, those who exhibit the violent thought and behavioral patterns of the previous generations end up on the train to be regenerated and re-educated. If they can't, she spread her hands. Perhaps their clones can be. What happens to them? They stay here forever, of course, she smiled. We joke about it, calling being trained forever. That's not very funny. I've said that. Flat look. So are you ready to be introduced to your new life? It all starts with the dining car. Ready when you are. I walked towards the door. She led the way. We exited the narrow doorway into a narrow hallway, making our way towards the small door at the end. I noticed many small rooms, offices, and labs. We got to the end and pushed a small square button. The door opened automatically, and we stepped through into an open passageway. The amount of wind was horrendous, but it seemed to be sealed off from the outdoors somehow. Shields on either side prevent large objects from passing, but allow the small objects to flow through, she answered. Before I even asked, we hit the next button. The door opened. We walked into a virtual garden. We passed down a small pathway of slate stones. Thick grass carpeted most of the room, with various plants along either side, including fruit trees, bushes, tomato plants, and other edibles. We continued until we got to a large dining room that was full of people. Most had the same complexion as I. The only variance was the hair, some straight, some kinky, some curly, but the same color skin. As we walked in, all eyes turned to me. Everyone stood and started clapping. Deborah grinned and said, "Welcome to the real world." I stood there aghast. I couldn't believe it. Then I felt my world shaking up again. I opened my eyes. What was I doing? I was sitting on an Amtrak train heading to Florida to start a new life. Had it all been a dream? It seemed so real. Just a dream, and then another shaking. Deborah stood there. I was in a small cabin again, this time, my mind clear. The small train cabin had been my home. I had been on that train for years. She smiled. Too much virtual reality is bad for you, you know. You have to be ready for tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? The train to nowhere will be letting you off where Florida used to be. You will help repopulate the South Coast. You're lucky. After only 40 years, you're ready to enter into the Circle region. Congratulations. I've been here 40 years? That's impossible. I'm the same age as I was before. Of course you are. That's the way you're designed, and that's the way you're programmed. Surely you don't think that you are really human. Come on. My jaw went slack. She stood without saying a word and shook her head. She got serious again. Get prepared for tomorrow. Put that thing away. We'll be in Florida by then. Welcome to the real world. The training is over. And that is the end. Like what you're hearing? Subscribe, follow us. You can even donate to the author on our website.